Welcome back to the 13th episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, IVJ, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about the Nitto ATP Finals. And before I actually get into today's episode, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video and comment if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're listening on any other streaming platforms, just rate my show and make sure to follow my social media, that is Instagram and Twitter, using @TennisTraverse, that is @TennisTraverse. And I'm sorry that I haven't been posting that much on Instagram and Twitter. I've just been a little busy with school, so I hope that I'll get right back into posting soon, especially on Twitter because I haven't been posting a lot, but yeah. Okay, now let's get right into today's episode. So we'll be talking about the ATP Finals that took place, and I just want to say that in my opinion, it is one of the best finals we had. So in case you guys don't know how the ATP Finals take place, it is really similar, practically the same as the WTA Finals, where basically 8 players, the top 8 players, they get separated into 2 different groups of 4, and then they compete as in a group stage, and then the top 2 advances from each group to form the semifinal pair-ups, and then there's a final to decide who was the year-end champion of this. And I just want to say that this way there's more chances for players to play, because instead of playing one match and you lose and you get eliminated, you can play 3 matches, and even though, for example, you may lose one of the matches, if you win 2 of them, you can still advance. So there's more matches to watch, and in my opinion, everything is more packed because even though there's less matches, it's all really high quality matches since it's for the top players. And I really like this tournament better than the WTA tournament this year because of all the conditions, the weather conditions surrounding that tournament. The matches really wasn't of high quality. However, this year, the men's side, it's actually of high quality. And I'll just start off with saying who's part of which group. So the first group consists of the number 2 seed, Carlos Alcaraz, the number 3 seed, Daniil Medvedev, the number 5th seed, Andrew Rublev, and the number 7 seed, Alexander Zverev. So that is one group. The other group consists of the number 1 seed, NOVAK DJOKOVIC, the number 4th seed, JANNIK Sinner, and the number 6 seed, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and the number 8th seed, Holger Rune. So this is how it mapped out. However, I just want to say that for Novak's group, Stefanos Tsitsipas withdrew for his second match. I think he played his first match against JANNIK Sinner, and he lost with the score of 6-4, 6-4, 6. However, when he was playing against Holger Rune, I think he had an injury, and the score was 1-2, and he just withdrew from that match. So the person that came in replacing Stefanos Tsitsipas is Hubert Hurkacz, and I really like him because he had a great year, especially towards the end. So I'm really happy that he managed to play in one of these finals. And I also just want to say, let's just talk about the doubles first because I think it's something to talk about. So the finals is currently going on. I'm recording this on Sunday, and the finals pair matchup for doubles is Ram and Salisbury versus Sabalos and Granollers. This is an interesting matchup because I really like Ram and Salisbury because obviously they won US Open, I believe 3 years in a row, which is super impressive. And the other pair is the number 5th seed, and Ram and Salisbury are the number 6th seed, so it's a close match. And by the time I'm recording this, Ram and Salisbury won the first set with a score of 6-3, which is a really, not a tight score, but it's just one break away, which I found is really impressive. And by the time my episode comes out, you guys will obviously know who wins. But let's just first talk about the singles matchups first. So I'll just start off with some interesting matches that took place during the group stage. So one of the best matches that took place was Novak Djokovic versus Holger Rune. So I really like this matchup. The score is with Novak coming out out on top with a score of 7-6, 7-4 in tiebreak. And then he lost the second set tiebreak with a score of 1-7, and then he won the deciding set with a score of 6-3. So there were 2 tiebreaks, which means that it is a really tight match. And I really like their matchup because Holger Rune is someone who takes a lot of risks, and Novak Djokovic plays with a lot of steadiness, and he's like not willing to take risks. Well, he is willing to take risks, but he rather play like high percentages shots. So it was just a really fun matchup. And obviously, Holger Rune beat Novak last year during the Paris Masters tournament, and Novak got his revenge this year at Paris. However, it's just like a really anticipated matchup, and to be honest, every matchup in this like tournament is highly anticipated because, like I said before, it's the top 8 players after all. So I think the one thing that set them apart, well, I don't think there's anything that set them apart. I think it's just that Novak is better at doing like well under pressure because obviously he's Novak, he has more experiences. So some stats that can prove this is Holger Rune had 7 double faults over Novak's 4 double faults, which just shows that Novak is more stress enduring. However, except for that, I think mostly the stats are like even. For example, Novak converted 4 out of 8 break points, and Holger Rune converted 3 out of 6 break points. So it's kind of even. And I just wanted to say that this is a really good matchup. I'll obviously leave the link in my description, and I'm not going to repeat that every time, but every time I like talk about a good matchup, I'll obviously like leave the link in the description. And another good matchup, I think, is Carlos Alcaraz versus Alexander Zverev. Alexander Zverev had an injury, unfortunately, last year during Roland Garros against Rafael Nadal, and it was like a really serious injury. He twisted his ankle, and it was really heartbreaking, but he made a comeback this year. I think it was a great comeback, and I'm just really happy that he won. Even though I love Carlos, I think it's just because Carlos obviously is really young, and he had a lot of pressure built up against him just because of how awesome and how talented he is. So obviously Alexander Zverev, he's coming back from an injury, so everyone, I don't think like his anticipation of winning is that high. Like nobody, well, obviously some people anticipated him to win, but like there's obviously more people that want Carlos to win, if that makes any sense. So I think Alexander Zverev just has like less pressure compared to Carlos, and that's a deciding factor of this match. However, it's also a really great match, and I'm just really I think it's really impressive how players can like come back even though losing the first set in a really close match. It just shows how like the mental toughness of the different players. And another interesting match, again, surprise, features Novak because Novak is just amazing. But it's Novak versus JANNIK Sinner, and Novak actually lost this match. The score is 5-7 with Novak losing the first set, and then he won the second set tiebreak with a score of 7-5, and then he lost the third set tiebreak with a surprising tiebreak score of 2-7, which I said is surprise because normally he does really well in tiebreaks, and it is the deciding set. So he's probably really mentally strong because he's always mentally strong during these crucial moments, but I think Jannik just performed better. And I'm currently looking at the stats right now. And to be honest, as I said, this is a really close match. So, like, there really isn't anything that set them apart. And I just want to say that they both have 109 points won. So they are, like, equal in points. It's just because of how sometimes, even though you won a few points in a game, the other person come back. So you just gain some, like, I don't like to say it's useless point, but essentially it's useless because the other player won that game anyway, if that makes sense. So it's because of that, and they all have 109 points. So I don't think that Novak performed worse than Sinner. I think Sinner just performed better during crucial circumstances. So this was a really good match. And another great match is, another 2 great matchups is Medvedev versus Zverev and Carlos Alcaraz versus Andre Rublev. And I just want to point out that Andre Rublev didn't win a set during this tournament, which is kind of sad because I like him. But I think he just needs to learn how to play better and play with higher quality when he's matching up against really good players. And yeah, the next matchup I'll talk about, I think, is JANNIK SINNER versus Hoja Rune. This was a good matchup. However, I just want to point out that if JANNIK SINNER accidentally loses, accident as in quotation marks, if he accidentally loses this match against Rune, Novak will actually get eliminated. However, JANNIK decided to just do what a champion always does, which is to go out there and play no matter, he doesn't think about the future, he might match up with Novak. He just think about right now, the present, and he actually manages to beat Hoja Rune, which ultimately saved Novak Djokovic, making him advance to semifinals. But yeah. And the other one is Novak Djokovic versus Hubert Hurkacz, and surprisingly, this is also a 3-set match. So Novak played three-set matches during the group stage, and I guess it really wasn't a close match, but even though the score says otherwise, I feel like it is just a lot of, how do I say, it's a lot of break points, and during the third set, it was just really one-sided with Novak winning 6-1. So yeah, but I'm really happy that, as I said before, Hubert gets to play in one of the bigger tournaments this year. And then let's just talk about the semifinals. So the semifinals was also really highly anticipated, with Novak Djokovic versus Carlos Alcaraz, number 1 and number 2 seed matchup versus, this is one matchup, and the other matchup is Medvedev versus JANNIK Sinner, which is number 3 and number 4 matchup. So this is actually a super tied and a highly anticipated semifinal. But just want to say that the number 1 and number 2 matchup just didn't, well, they lived up to anticipation, but Novak is just too good, because literally Carlos was, when I was watching it, I thought Carlos was actually gonna win because he had the upper hand. He was always generating break points, but he just didn't manage to convert them. So from the stats, we can see that he had 4 break points, but he didn't convert any of them. Whereas Novak had 8 break points and he converted 3 of them, which really isn't a high percentage, but that's better than what Alcaraz did. And I think this just doesn't show us much because, as I said before, Novak just played too good. So let's just talk about the other matchup, which is JANNIK Sinner versus Daniil Medvedev. So this is a highly anticipated matchup as well, with JANNIK Sinner coming out on top with a score of 6-3. And then he lost the tiebreak with a score of 4-7 in the second, and he won the deciding set with a score of 6-1. So I wouldn't say that it was a really, really, well, it was really close, but it wasn't really stressful because the scores are kind of set apart, maybe except for the second set. But I just want to say that everyone rooted for JANNIK Sinner because obviously the ATP Finals took place in Italy, which is where JANNIK Sinner's from, and the crowd is really funny. They were booing Daniil Medvedev, but that's just tennis crowds. And I think one of the things that set them apart is probably service points won, because JANNIK Sinner won 71 service points and Daniil Medvedev only won 56. So that is a huge point that set them apart. And now talking about the final, I think this final is going to be highly anticipated. Well, it is highly anticipated. I feel like I've been using that word for a million times, but this matchup is going to be super impressive because it's JANNIK Sinner versus Novak Djokovic. They played each other during the group stage, and with JANNIK Sinner ultimately coming out on top with a really tight score. So I think this will obviously be a super, super amazing match. And my prediction is Novak will win because I feel like during the group stage, Novak really didn't perform that well. As I said, he had 3 matches with 3 sets. So it was just really tight. But however, during the semifinals, he just played super amazing. He played against Carlos Alcaraz, and I said before, I thought Carlos was gonna win, and Novak just played amazingly, flawless. So I think he literally just stepped up his quality immediately during the elimination round. So I think Novak will come ultimately come out on top. However, I don't think we should underestimate Sinner because obviously it is his home court and every member in the crowd will be rooting for him. So I wouldn't say that Sinner wouldn't have a shot at to winning because obviously Sinner won China Open, and this year I feel like he's just been playing really steadily, so I think this will be a really fun matchup. And this match is going to happen at like noon today. I'm recording on Sunday, so by the time my episode comes out tomorrow, you guys will know who the winner is. But yeah, I think that's all. I feel like I talked too fast. I don't know. Tell me if you guys want me to slow down a bit, but yeah. And that's all. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please follow my social media using at Tennis Traverse. That is at Tennis Traverse, and give my show a rating on I can't speak, on a platform you're using to listen to my podcast right now. And oh, also, I just want to say that my next episode is going to be super fun because I will finally have a surprise guest, and I'm not going to give out any spoilers, but we'll be doing something that's quite similar to episode 12, which is, Words Night, but it's going to be for the men's side, and it's going to be super fun. And yeah, I hope you guys will tune in to my next episode. And that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.